Hello and welcome. This is Fernando, and this is Digital Crafters, a podcast where I have conversations with independent artists, developers, designers who are making a living out of their digital creations, whether it's a tool, a video game, a piece of software. These people have found a way to dedicate themselves to work on these beautiful creations. So today I have Ramon, who's an amazing game developer, software developer, teacher. He's the creator of the Raylive library, which is a C-based library for game development, who has been used by thousands and thousands of users and thousands of his students, and it's also being used by many universities across the world. So, Ramon, it's a pleasure to have you here. How are you?
Hello, Fernando. Very fine.
So it looks like there's a little bit of lag right now.
Yeah, I'm noticing it. Oh no, your internet connection is unstable.
That's fine. I think it's all good now.
Yeah, it's good now.
All right. Yeah, that's the challenge of like remote podcasting. So nice. So I know that you're based in Barcelona. Um, and yeah, so like like were you born there? Did you grow up there? Study there?
Actually, at this moment, I'm not in exactly in Barcelona. I'm in a small town near Barcelona. It's my hometown. And yeah, that's it. I'm just here for a couple of days. Well, actually, tomorrow I'll be back in Barcelona. I work in Barcelona and I live in Barcelona usually. But I just came to my hometown for a couple of days. That's it.
Awesome. So growing up in there, what was it like to be you? As a maybe as a kid or as a teenager. Did you always like when did you start liking computers?
Well, I probably would be better to say when I start with video games because actually I jumped into computers quite late. I think it was 14 or 15, but first I jumped into video games and actually it was uh, what uh, what started everything in some way because so I will explain you a bit of story. I live in a very small town. In general, technology arrives late to my town, or at least in the 90s, the technology arrived quite late in the town. Well, someday I saw video games for the first time, and since I saw the first game that was Arkanoid, I get crazy about video games. It was quite amazing to see something on the TV that you were able to control. It was kind of magic for me, real magic. My parents bought me a Sega Genesis console. Well, here it's called Sega Mega Drive. From that moment, since I started playing the first game in my life that was Sonic, I decided that I wanted to make video games. And it's a passion inside me since I was a kid. Later on, I started with computers when I was 14 or 15. Then, when it arrived the moment to go into the college, I didn't want to do. At that moment, I wanted to make video games, but I didn't want to study computing. And I was looking a lot for all the courses and all the options I had to study video games making, but at that moment, nothing similar exists here in Spain. So it was impossible to study that. And computing was not exactly the subject that I was most interested on. Actually, I was interested in art. I wanted to do art, but well, at the end, I enrolled into electronic engineering. So it's, I mean, it has some computing, but it's more focused on electronics. That's it. Um, I did the career. I finished the career. Actually, I even did a master degree on electronics. And once I finished it, I got the opportunity to get to do a master degree in video games development. Actually, it was the first time that it was offered in the university I was studying, and I went for my passion for video games development. But I must say that at that point, my programming skills were not the best ones to make video games. Most of the computing skills I had were in assembly for microchips. So I didn't know much about graphics. Well, actually, I knew nothing about graphics. Well, I'm not a computer engineer. I didn't study computer science, so I didn't know many things about many fields that surround computing and video games development. But well, from that moment that I got the opportunity to do a master degree in video game development, I start learning about video games, how to make them. I start working so hard to learn not only the programming side, but also the art side, because it's actually the side that I love the most, the art side. And the design side also. And yeah, from there it's been I finished my studies. I got a job in the industry. I was very lucky to get a job. Actually, my first job was in EA, so it was amazing in Electronic Arts. Yeah, and after 3 years working there in Electronic Arts, I learned a lot about video games and video game making. Then I was in other small companies. And finally, I jumped into teaching video games developing. I started my own startup, published several games. Well, that's a bit the progression that I follow.
Okay.
So that's about the last 20 years of my life. So
Yeah, crazy. So that's super interesting because I didn't know that you like I imagined that maybe you started programming first and like that got you into video games or something similar to that. Because like Raylive, it's a low level library basically, right? Like it's not JavaScript or something like that. It's C, right? So yeah, that's super interesting to hear that you actually were more interested in the artistic or visual part first. And when you got your job at EA, what was your job specifically? Like, were you a programmer? Were you doing something different?
actually, in EA, well, actually, it was a great job. I still remember it with a lot of love because it was a great place. We still have lots of friends there. It was a great place. Um, I was working as a localization integration engineer. That's the usually the games from most of the studios in EA came to our studio. The studio was in Madrid, and we take part of the final development of the game and the localization for the multiple countries in the world. Even it was translated to 17, 18 languages, something like that, some games. So it was crazy. In the engineering team, that was the team where I was working, we mostly managed all the assets that came from the translator, from the audio recordings, even sometimes you have to change art, 3D models, sprites, whatever was required for the game. So we took care of all that material. We processes, we automatized the processes to generate the builds. We also did the testing. Well, actually, it was in the engineering part, mostly managing the assets and building tools to process those assets to be integrated into the bill. That was mainly my daily job there. Actually, I was there for 3 years, and then the two first years I was more oriented to project management, not that focused on programming. Well, there you at the end of the day you are doing a lot of things actually. You were doing a lot of things, so maybe you were having a meeting with the studio about the state of the assets or something in the morning, and then in the afternoon you have to do some scripting to set up a pipeline, and maybe later in the day you were coding some small tool or some small script to do some kind of assets processing. So actually, you were doing a lot of things, but the truth is that the first 3 years I was more oriented to the project management and the communication with the studio. So not that programming focused task, or more management task. And the last year I was there, I was in the programming team. Well, inside the engineering team, there was a programming team, and there that during that time I was way more focused to programming than the first 2 years. Basically, building tools, working with other teams. For example, with the audio tool, with the audio team, providing them with specific tools for audio processing or for audio script management. Well. Actually, I did a lot of things. The good point to work there, localization probably it's not that much or could seem not that much interesting compared to the video game development itself. But the good point is that you are receiving mostly, almost all the video games developed by Electronic Arts all around the world. So you have access to a lot of design, art, assets, lots of different products that you can learn a lot from them, and that's really really amazing because you do not see only one product and you work on only one product. You're working every 2, 3, 4 weeks or every 2 months. You are working on different products. So you see, maybe you're working in PS3, PS4, with one studio, with other studio, with one game, another game. So you are really seeing a lots of way of programming, managing assets, tools. So I think that's amazing. And I learned a lot there.
Yeah.
A lot.
It sounds like you learned a ton of there, and like it was like a very
It could be a bit stressful at some moments, I have to say.
yeah. How many hours would you usually work there?
Well, it would depend on the day, and it would depend on the phase of the project. So sometimes it was in a final phase of the project, so you had to work longer in the day, and other times it was not that pressure. So it would depend on the day. But I have to say that I really had a lot of fun. For example, if someday I had to stay in the office for dinner, that sometime it happened, it was kind of wow, that's amazing. We're having dinner here with the office friends. Yeah, I mean, at that time I felt super. Everything was super good for me. I mean, I didn't care about staying longer or doing more hours than expected. I also have to say that you had a lot of flexibility to go into the office later in the morning. And actually, sometimes it was even better because during the different time between the States and Spain, more studios get ready at 4 p.m. in Spain time.
Okay.
So it was easier for us to have communication with the studios later in the day,
Yeah.
5, 6, 7, 8 in the evening, that in the morning.
Awesome. And back back on those days, did you have like any personal projects, or were you like completely focused on your job?
Not really. When I was in EA, well, you know that when you are in a big company, you usually have to sign some kind of contract that
Oh yeah.
you are not that you are not that much allowed to do side projects just for NDA, you know. But actually, when we are there, we ask our managers to be able to work in a small game with other members in the team. And actually, we start some small project, but unfortunately, we were really busy on our daily jobs that we had no time to really work on the on-site projects. At the very end, it didn't go anywhere. So yeah, I could say that we didn't have any side project beside our daily work.
Okay. How long did you stay there?
3 years I stayed there.
3 years.
It was 3 years there.
Crazy. Yeah. That's yeah. And so when you decided to leave, did you jump to a different job or
Well,
um
actually, I was laid off because there was it was in 2010, in 2010
mm,
approximately, I think, that there was a massive layoff in
yeah.
EA. There was about 2,000 people laid off at that time. And actually, the studio in Madrid was really affected by that layoff, and many people were laid off. And well, I was one of the layoffs at that moment, and so that's it. It was not my decision to leave the studio, but I must say that it was not dramatic at all. It was okay. I could understand that.
Yeah. I think it was around like the economic crisis, right? 2008.
It was 2009 exactly.
Okay. Yeah. And what did you do next? Did you look for a job?
Well, I've done a lot of things actually. Actually, I was wow, it's a long story. But, well, I was sometime in Madrid, but then for family matters, I have to leave Madrid and came back to my town. And I had to spend some time in my town. And well, actually, when I was here, I found a job in a small startup in a small city next to my town. It was not Barcelona; it was called Lleida. It's another city, and I was working there for like 6 months or 8 months, something like that. It was a very small startup that I was actually the first employee of the company. And there, I was doing lots of things from web development, apps development. At that moment, we published several games for Windows Phone, actually, using XNA. We were creating apps for iOS. Actually, we were doing actually, I was doing a lot of things. And after the 6 months or 8 months, actually, I also was teaching in the university at that moment, some courses in video game. And after several months in that startup, well, I decided to leave by myself, and I started my own startup. And with all the knowledge I had, actually I developed in like 9 months. I developed two video games, and I published two video games. Quite nice for mobile devices, for Windows Phone platform. And wow, I learned a lot. I created all the art. I created all the. I coded the engine. I coded everything. I even localized the game to 9 languages. The games were published in 9 languages. I didn't do the music. The music was outsourced, but yeah, that's it. I just published those two games, and then I start. I published them by myself at that moment. No publisher or anything. And then when I was in a fair that is very popular, very famous here in Spain, that is called Game Lab in Barcelona. It's kind of an international video games fair or event. I went there looking for publishers for another product I was working on, and I met a private education institution that offered me to teach some classes, actually.
Okay.
In Barcelona. Actually, they were starting. It was they were starting from scratch, and I was there to work for. I think it was 15 days to teach for 15 days. I ended up being 6 years working in that school. Yeah, that's it. I started the first 15 days. Then they offered me to stay the full year. I did 1 year. After that, I created Riley to keep teaching video games development.
Could you talk about that? Like, because that's where you got inspired to create Relive, right? So, like, could you tell us?
Yeah, actually, I was teaching in that. It was a private institution teaching. I don't know how it say it's upper grade education. I mean, for people that is not going to the college but are 18, 19, 20 or older and want to specialize in one in computing or something. I don't know the name for that kind of education outside Spain, but do you understand what?
Yeah, yeah. There's something similar in Mexico, and I think probably in other countries too. But yeah, like.
Yeah, it's like university level, but it's not that. For example, here in Spain, the university is extremely theoretical with math, physics, and all these kind of subjects. And those other courses have become very, very popular in the last 10 years or so, and are more focused into practice. And they usually teach with the latest tools in the market, and they are more oriented to integrate the people that finish the course into the market as soon as possible, Instead of being 4 years, they are only 2 years, and it's like that. Well, I actually was teaching. I started teaching there, as I said. I started just for 15 days, but after the first 15 days, I stayed the full year. And I remember working a lot, but a lot means more than 10 hours a day, for sure. I was working a lot because I had to prepare everything from scratch. I had to prepare all the syllabuses, all the material, several subjects. It was, believe me, it was really, really crazy. But after the first year, I decided that I checked what worked and what didn't work in the programming subjects. And I felt that I need some easy tool to teach in the way I want to teach. That summer, actually, after the first year, was when I decided to create a small library with some knowledge I had from previous projects and from the previous knowledge I had in OpenGL and everything. Yeah, it was the origin of Riley. I created it I started working on it on August, I think, and it was ready for October. That was the moment when I was starting teaching it in that center. But I think in November I was releasing version 1.0 official, the official release of version 1.0. And well, actually, it worked super good with the students. The students were really engaged in the programming subject. It's amazing to be able to when you start programming. It's amazing to be able to see something on the screen. Usually, when you start programming with that console screen, everything is text.
Yeah.
Oh,
It doesn't feel like magic, right?
that's something that I must say I don't like from programming because, as I said at the beginning, I really like art. I really love the artistic part of video game development, and I really like aesthetics. So when I see that console window with all the text on it, and you have to write the commands and everything, it well, and now I feel super comfortable, but at that moment, it was not the most comfortable approach to programming. But despite that, you need to know about that. So it's kind of contradictory because from one side, you want to see things on the screen in a beautiful way, but you also need to know how things work in the background and how things work in the low level. And I think Riley was kind of the mix of both, or I try to find kind of a balance between both things. So, okay, I'm giving you something to put things on the screen in a very easy way, but at the same time, you are seeing the code in a kind of raw mode, and you compile things in a kind of raw mode, and you don't have a fancy interface to deal with. So I try to find kind of that balance between my artistic mind and my engineering mind.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that was was the result of that.
Yeah.
In that moment, I've been now it's been 7 years and a half working in Riley. And not full time because I cannot do it full time. But there were some moments that I really put 6, 7, 8 hours per day in Riley. So I put lots of hours to this project.
When you say 6 hours, do you mean like besides your daily job? So like, you have like, I don't know, 6, 8 hours on your daily job, and then you get home or you go somewhere else.
Fernando, I've been at least for 1 year, working 6 hours in my day job and 8 hours in Riley.
Wow.
For 1 year, but including weekends.
Yeah, that's an insane amount of time.
Yeah, now I think about it, and I must say that that's probably not healthy. When there is something that you really love and you really enjoy doing, like, for example, playing video games, you don't care about the amount of hours that you are putting on it. It's like a hobby. You are enjoying it a lot. And there have been some moments, maybe not all the time, but there have been some moments in the Riley development that I really enjoyed working on it. I really enjoyed it a lot. And on those moments, I have put a lot of time on it.
Yeah, and so like you got out of school, and I mean not like out of your daily job in the school, and did you go home, or because I know that you like to go to coffee shops and like work there, so like
I love working in cafes. I must say, I love. Okay, if I have the opportunity, I like cafe. And, I like going to the cafe and have a cafe latte with some croissant or with some sweet thing. And I love staying there for 2, 3, 4 hours working if possible. I love it, but I also like to have during all that time. I almost always had a space to go for work because for me it's a bit difficult to work at home. Well, I actually work a lot at home, but I prefer to have a place to go for work. I don't know, it makes me feel like more productive, or I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, I read. Sorry. So I read that you rented a few co-working spaces, right? So that's what you're talking about.
All that time, I've been in 6 or 7 different co-workings in that time. Yeah, let me count it. One, two, three, four, five. Five, I think, or 6 different co-workings. Well, never mind. The point is that I usually went to the school where I was teaching. I was teaching in that private institution where I was teaching game development. Well, actually, was teaching a lot of subjects, a lot of them. And after the school, I used to go to my co-working, where sometimes I had a full office, sometimes I only had some small space. It depends. So I actually must say that most of the time I also had my startup. So I was set up as I got my startup, and even I had sometimes some students helping me, working with me in Relief and even in some other projects. Actually, we released a game for PlayStation Vita some years ago. So yeah, I try to work in to have the education side as my main work for, well, to get the money actually. And then I also try to work in other projects, personal projects, from small video games, really. Lately I've been working on tools, and most of that time I had a co-working rented with some space to go there for work. In a usual day, I used to work to the school to teach for 6 hours or something like that. And after teaching, I used to go to the co-working for, it depends on the day, but usually 6 hours, sometimes more than that. So I usually left home at 8 a.m. in the morning, and I got back home at 9 in the evening or something like that.
That's actually that doesn't sound as crazy like when you put it that way. Um yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes after getting home, cooking, having dinner, and everything, sometimes I got into the computer to prepare the classes for the next week or for the next day, or even working in some idea that you have in your head, and you say, "Oh, okay, I want to try that because I had that problem with Relief or with some game or with some tool, and I want to really try that if it works or anything." I'm also a person that it's very difficult for me to disconnect, you know. So I usually keep thinking about the problems or about the things that I have to do, and I'm very organized, or I try to be very organized. With I have lots of lists with the to do things, not to do things, and these kind of things. I try to be very organized. And yeah, I always think about, okay, I have to do that this way, or I have to do that other thing, or whatever. Yeah, this last year, approximately, it has not been the most productive time of my life. I must say that. So this last year, with all that pandemic, with all that situation, with the lockdown that you have to keep lockdown at home and
Yeah.
everything, I didn't feel that motivated some days to keep working, keep doing things. So I must say that it was not the most productive time of.
Yeah.
of my life, but at least comparing with the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, you're probably as productive as I am on a normal day. Like your not productive day is probably my productive day.
I don't know. Now I spend, well, I must say also that during this last year, it's something that's curious actually, is that there were many days that I didn't feel in the mood to get into computer to do complex things or solving bugs or even do right development. I spent a lot of time into Discord, into writing networks, checking Reddit, checking Discord, GitHub, well, the different networks, Twitter, and it's interesting to see that despite not being very productive or as productive all the time in the coding sense, spending a lot of time in the social networks also made Riley become more popular and more people aware of it. And yeah, it has been kind of like being productive, but without working so hard. you know?
Yeah, and I guess it also like because you're at a different stage now with Rayleigh, right? You're more focused on the the social media aspect, and you're also more focused on wanting to make it grow. And I also was reading that 7.5 years blog post that you wrote. I was reading that, and you mentioned that you want to get into YouTube a little bit more, and that you're also looking for ways to kind of jump full time, right? You
I would like to really, because at the beginning, Riley was only a side project. I could say that probably for the first 5 years, that actually for the first 5 years, it was not popular at all or not really popular. Not many people knew about that. Um, it was kind of a hobby. That's it for me. It was just kind of a hobby when I want to just try new things, test something, some small demos, have fun. I use it for teaching. So it was just really only a hobby project, and I didn't expect much of the library. So I was thinking about it like, okay, maybe one day I just get tired of working on this project. I actually work in lots of projects in the last 15 years of my life. I work in lots of projects. And I think there are projects that in some ways are way more interesting than Riley. That's the truth. But Riley, well, it was kind of a small weekend project to just have fun.
Yeah.
But at this moment, I've seen Riley grow so much and getting so popular, and even receiving a couple of awards, and yeah, a lot of people being aware of the project, that I start thinking that maybe I can push it further. Maybe it's really that good and could be really that useful for a lot of people. And
Yeah. I mean, it's already very useful to a lot of people. I think that's a very clear thing. Because yeah, Raylive is a very very straightforward, useful tool for learning to do game development, and also just not only to learn, but to use it. It's a very powerful tool and very simplistic, and I think that's what a lot of people value from it. And yeah, I think you have quite a large audience, I'd say, for Raylive. Um, so what are your plans in terms how do you plan to make it grow, or are you planning to I mean, I know that you have Raylive Technologies, which is kind of like a company where you want to create tools.
talk about I can
Yeah, please go ahead.
Oh, well, okay. Like in mid 2018, actually, I quit my teaching job. And I decided, I got some savings, and I decided to focus on creating something using Riley, something beside Riley, because Riley it's free, it's open source. I want it to keep being free and open source. Well, actually, that's the plan. Um, but I thought, okay, I'm interested in interfaces. I'm interested in tools development. I actually got some experience in tools development. So why not try to do something with my experience, my knowledge, Riley, try to fit everything together in some way. And that was a bit the origin of Riley Technologies. And actually, it was my life. It's my current startup, so it's not that yet. And yeah, I start working on it, developing small tools. I start working in a set of small tools that I considered could be interesting, especially for game developers. And there were more kind of an investigation process and a research process to create something different, create small tools, portable, multi-platform, with a set of benefits that I thought not many similar tools had in the market. And that was a bit kind of an experiment. I was working on it for actually, I was working on it almost full time until the start of the pandemic, approximately until March 2020. And actually, I'm super happy with the results because I was able to publish up to seven small tools that are available on Itch.io. They can be used for free. They got a free version. I accept donations, and there is also a bit more a pro version with some additional features that only advanced users actually need. And I'm super happy with the results. But the truth is that in economic terms, it didn't work because some people buy the tools, some people pay for the tools, but it's not possible for me to do it for a living. That's the point. And actually, by the beginning of last year, I started teaching in the university again. They gave me the opportunity through some friend to give some subjects in the university, and I start teaching again. But this time, sorry, I'm not doing that many hours in the university like I was doing in the other center. In the other center, I was working approximately 6 hours per day. Now in the university, I'm working, well, last semester, I mean, last year, I was working 20 hours per week. So, I mean, class hours. After that, there is a crazy amount of work preparing the material, preparing the classes, preparing corrections, answering mails. It's a lot of work. And now I'm teaching about 12 hours per week. That is not that much, but well, it's giving me some money uh, to
To keep
well,
yourself
it's
alive.
giving me money and time, and that's for me is
Yeah.
the most important thing because I have some money for to live because
Yeah.
paying a rent in Barcelona it's crazy. Believe me, it's
Yeah.
crazy. It's a lot of money, and also it's giving me time. So I have time not only to work on Riley, but also to work on other project I have or work on other things I like or just relax. That's it. As said, uh, this pandemic has been a bit tough for me. Well, a bit tough, actually. I thought I was not a very social person. I'm quite introvert, and I consider myself not a social person or not a very social person. But I must say that I really, really miss going with friends for a drink or going out or going to a cafe to have
Yeah.
some drink and work there. At this moment in Barcelona, that's not possible. It's crazy. It's been like 3 or 5. It's been like 4 months or no, 1, 2. Yeah, like 3 or 4 months that even bars, cafes are closed. It's crazy. I mean, you can go in the morning from 7:30 to 9 in the morning to have the coffee or something like that, but you are not able to sit there and work there. So, wow, it was really hard for me. I mean, I like a lot to I like walking. I like to go out and yeah, that and it was not possible to do that most of the time. And
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Um, yeah, hope it does get better this year, at the end of the year, at least.
I hope so.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna.
In the meantime, I keep working on Relief and, and
Yeah.
engaging with the community.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's also an opportunity to do that, like to engage in the online community more.
I must say that uh, for example, it's very difficult for me, or I don't feel that comfortable with YouTube or those kind of networks. In my to-do list, I got I have to do YouTube tutorials, or maybe on Twitch. I got a Twitch channel, but I don't feel that comfortable. It's kind of maybe because I'm a bit older, or I don't know why, but I prefer just the standard. For example, I love Discord now. I really like Discord, the way you communicate with the different channels and everything. Usually, if people contact me, I'm always open to talk with anyone. So in that way, it's okay. But if I have to go and record myself to upload me in YouTube or do tutorial or anything, actually I'm doing it every day in class right now. So
Yeah.
in the university that I'm teaching, I'm doing it because most of the classes actually are taught online at this moment. And I'm already doing it, and I don't feel comfortable doing it. I'm the kind of teacher that I love to ask students, speak with them, um, see
To
what they
engage with
know
them.
and what they do not know, if they understand the lesson. I really like to ask them things, and I try to be very, very interactive in that way. And I feel that with the online, uh, that's that's a bit more difficult to get that interactive part.
Yeah.
I miss that. I miss that really.
I kind of wanted to jump on a different subject. Something a little bit less depressing. um, so I know that Relief is part of the handmade community, handmade network. Yeah. Um. So having said that, I'm pretty sure you are very aware of Jonathan Blow's J programming language. What do you think about that? Are you planning to use it once it's out?
Well, I just read some drafts of the language that I think were published around, so I don't know much detail about it. Um, well, I don't know what to say. From a technical point of view, I think it could be super good. Like, for example, other languages that probably you know that have appeared in the last year, like Seek or Odin. I don't
Yeah.
know, or say, I think from a technical point of view, they are great because they innovate in several ways and they try to make the life of the programmer easier in the way they write code or in the way they manage memory. So in several ways, they are great. But the problem I see is adoption, the adoption
Yeah.
of those languages. Because, for example, I love C, and I've been coding in C for the last 7 years or so. In the past, I code in C++, in C Sharp. So those are the languages I know better. But I love C at this point. I love C, and if I have to change to another language, it would be very difficult for me. We have languages like Go, like Rust, that have lots of benefits. And I've seen them several times, and they look great. But but I feel comfortable with C. I feel super comfortable with C. And I know that C still works everywhere.
Yeah.
And most libraries out there, libraries for drivers, for lots of hardware interaction, for all the hardware interaction, the libraries are mostly done in C or in C++ in some cases. So why? I don't feel the need at this point, at least, to change to another language. And I got the feeling that it could be the case for lots of developers.
Yeah.
Really feel comfortable with one language that, like C, that they know it works everywhere. It works everywhere, and everything has been built for the last 40 years around those languages.
Yeah.
So that's my view. Those languages, I think they are good or super good for many technical reasons, but I think that the adoption of those languages would be a long path.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think it also, like in my case, I have done some stuff on C. Like when I learned programming, well, I actually learned using like GameMaker, the scripting language that they have, and then I started learning C. But I didn't really get that deep into it. And like, but then later on, I tried to use C++ and C Sharp, then jump to C again, and try to like make games with that. But I think like a lot of people, like the learning curve of like getting past the dependency hell that you get into, like trying to link everything together, dealing with CMake and so on. Like that's what definitely kicked me out of the of using that language more often. And yeah, I think for me personally, J seems to be like, okay, this is, it looks like it's gonna be easier to use and have the same and maybe even more benefits than or like the same benefits of like C, because it's low level basically. At least that's my perspective. I'm not a very low level guy.
I would say that after several years of coding, one thing that I realized is when you got some experience with one coding language, actually, it's not the most important thing. I mean, you can learn one language, another language, you usually get used to it. Where it resides the real pain is in the environment configuration, setting up dependencies, understanding how compiler works, uh, all those kind of elements that surround the code. And usually, especially for people that start on the coding world, are not a priority. So I can what I see in my students is that usually students want to focus on learn a language, write code, understand the code, maybe algorithms, patterns, and lot of coding stuff. And for me, I think that at some point that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is being able to understand how the compiler works, what it does when it compiles your code, how to configure the environment, how to configure your tool to create games, your editor, how to link with other libraries, how linking works. Even when you compile your code, what is generated? What are you generating? How it's generated? What implies for different architectures? What implies for different systems? How it's connected, the hardware with the software in the low level? I think that it's crucial. That it's crucial. And what I see in most of the students is that they focus too much in the language itself and forget about all those other elements that actually I think are way more important than the language itself.
Yeah.
Because at the end, all languages, all coding languages, more or less, give you the same tools, are kind of the same. You write code, branches, loops, variables, memory. It's all languages give you the same or mostly the same.
Yeah.
And after that, when you realize that, the language is not that important.
Yeah.
But it's really important. It's all the other things. For example, for Riley, most of the problems people had with Riley all the time were about configuring the environment, setting up Riley with CodeBlock, Visual Studio, or Linux, on Android, or compile for web, or well, with any platform or with any environment. Now with Visual Studio, linking libraries, dynamic, static, release, debug, optimizations. All those things is where most people have problems actually. Not in the code itself. The code at the end is always
Yeah,
similar.
it's basically the same thing.
I said that with Riley, but it could be the same with Allegro, with SDL, or with any other library. And probably the reason why visual tools like Unity or Unreal are so successful between young coders or young people that want to make video games is not about the coding. It's not about coding. It's about the environment. It's about, because those tools give you the environment pre-configured. That's the point. It's not about, oh, I have to write some code or no. The code to make a video game, well, you can make crazy things like we can see in AAA games. So, but the code to write small games in general, or small games or mid-sized games, like in the 80s, 90s, or the beginning or 2000, it's quite straightforward at the end.
Yeah.
It's always the same. You got the game loop, you load some resources, you unload some resources, and you draw some things on the screen. It's always the same.
Yeah.
Well, it's my point of view, Fernando. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. Like that's exactly I'd say that that's the bottleneck of learning low level computing basically. Like it's just not having like a single source of knowledge that helps you understand like how things are linked and what the compiler is doing, what it's generating, how it actually works. And yeah, I think like me personally, like I have found that to be very challenging. I remember spending quite some time just trying to understand that, and at the end, like I just jumped into web development because I'm also like a very visual person, more of a designer. So I kind of just said like, yeah, like I do like low level stuff, and I'm interested in that, but like for practical reasons, like the things that I want to make, like I jumped on that direction, and I just like I really like design, like UI design. So like what you were explaining to me a few moments ago made me think you're so aware you are so aware of like the pains and the bottlenecks, because you have worked with so many different students, right? So like you have like this precise awareness of
I
like,
suffer that pain.
yeah. So it makes me think, um
That's Fernando. Let me say something about that. Um, I was the kind of kid that always was broken the computer all the time. And it was super frustrating for me. All the time I was broken my computer. My computer was all the time broke. And it was super frustrating for me to the point that when I had to decide for a career and to go to the university, that was one of the reasons I didn't want to study computing because it was too frustrating for me all the time because everything was broken. And well, now I'm older and I learn a lot of things in that way. And but I kind of get aware of that. Of
yeah,
hey, maybe it was not my problem because at the end programming is fun and
yeah,
it's simple. Maybe the problem is all the other things that surround coding.
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And have you, like with Relief Technologies and like your intentions of like finding a way to grow from where you are right now, have you considered creating your own engine? Not something, not like an alternative to Unity and Unreal and stuff like that, because I think there's a ton of engines already. Like I think there's just like a ton. Like like games from what is it called? Game from Scratch, the channel, the YouTube channel. Yeah, so like I love his videos, and he like always showcases so many different engines, right? But like in the end, it's like it's like all of the engines are the same basically, and
Yeah, I agree completely.
yeah. So and like talking with my previous guest, he uses GameMaker, uh, so and he has thought about changing from that because he's using like the older version of GameMaker just because like he really likes using that one. And like when I used the GameMaker, like I also felt that it was just like very simple to achieve stuff. Like like I only want this to happen. Like I don't want all of these other crazy things, like on Unity or like Unreal, which at some point you need to, handle like all the use cases, right? Because like Unity is like the market of Unity on Unreal is like game development in general. Like it's not a very niche thing. So yeah, like with you, have you thought about like creating a game engine that's very niched down to like a specific set of game developers? Like something that's like no, like it's not Unity. Like it's like it's for you. Like it's a tool for you. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course, I thought about that. It's in my roadmap.
Okay.
That, yeah, sure. But I have no time.
Yeah.
I don't like to say I have no time because actually I believe that if you want to do something, you try to find the time to do that thing. But it's not about doing it. It's about maintaining
Hmm. Yeah.
it. Right now, I hardly can. maintain RILEAP in the way I would like to. There is a roadmap, there are open issues, but I don't have that much energy to put into RILEAP because, well, I say I'm teaching in the university and it really takes me a lot of work to prepare the subjects, prepare the university material, review things that I don't know or I'm not an expert on it for the classes. So it really takes me a lot of time. And after that time, uh, it's difficult. I try to do some things with RILEAP, review the pull requests, review issues, attend the community, from time to time work on things. But at this point, every time that you have to work on some issue in RILEAP, there are issues that I know that I need like 3 days full time to solve that issue. And to
Yeah.
go to get those 3 days full time at this moment it's very difficult for me because I have so many things that I have to think about or I have to do that I cannot get those 3 full days concentration to resolve an issue. For example, I don't know if you have checked the RILEAP GitHub, but there is an issue about high DPI that has been open for ages. Or there is an issue about the way PBR works internally that also needs a complete redesign. So, or there is even an issue about full screen on web that drove me crazy for days, for like 3 days. It was crazy for me trying to solve that. And then you open an issue, and probably people that read the issue think, "Oh, come on, I can do that in half an hour." And it was, "Oh no, I've been 3 days trying to deal with that." And I think that. So what I mean is, I would like to create an editor, and also I have even some prototype about that, because I would tell you, a tool that I have published that is called RW Layout. I got published a tool that is to create layouts with
user
controls,
interfaces,
with buttons and everything. Yeah, I got some experiment of the same tool, but instead of creating controls, you can drop sprites, and you can kind of build your world with the sprites and everything. Well, it's an experiment I did so a while ago. I think that could be the start for a small editor, but you have to do create not only the code. You have to create kind of a web page to publish it. You have to create the banners, the images, the logos, descriptions, text, documentation. And after that, you have to maintain it and try to create a community. And at this point, seeing what has happened with RILEAP is kind of, okay, if I try to do that, maybe I cannot work on RILEAP anymore.
Yeah.
So, wow, it's difficult again to try to find that balance, But I must say that probably I'm crazy enough to at some point jump on it.
That would be an amazing feat. Yeah.
At the end, for example, I remember when I started with RILEAP, or the first year that I was working with RILEAP, that everything was so exciting. Every new feature, every new thing that I create was so exciting. It was, wow, I'm gonna do that. Let's try to do it that way. Let's learn these new things. Let's do some research. Actually, I love doing research about things and everything. So it was everything so exciting for me. Right now, for example, when I have to solve RILEAP bugs or issues, it's not that exciting.
Yeah.
It's kind of, oh, come on, now I have to review that thing. That's horrible. Oh, and
Yeah. Maintenance is the least fun part,
yeah,
I think.
and I must say that if it was the case that I got enough resources to do it full time, well, it could be great. So it
Yeah.
would be kind of okay. Uh, it's my job, and like any other job in the world, there could be things that you like and there could be things that you don't like. But it's your job, and you try to enjoy it all the time or most of the time. That's the point. But Riley is not a job that I get paid to do.
Hmm.
You know, it's a hobby project. So when I work on Riley, I try to work on things that I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
That's kind of my hobby because I'm putting my free time on it. I'm putting a lot of time on it. So I prefer to focus on the things that I like instead of things that maybe are not that enjoyable, like looking into an issue for 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
To do that, to look into an issue that I don't like for 3 days, I really need some kind of mental state. I need to find a specific mental state, really. So I need to think about it for some time before and really try to do all the things from other fields before, like for the university or personal things or whatever. And I have to I have to find my Zen moment, you know. And when I find that moment, I can work on that kind of things. But sometimes it's not that easy. And now
With
with
the
the
pandemic.
pandemic,
Yeah.
it's probably not the best moment.
Yeah.
Uh, that's it.
Yeah. It would be amazing. Like that's, I think that's a goal of many of us. And when I say us, like I say you, I say myself, the audience, and like we're just like there's work that we'd love to do full time, and it's just like that frustration of like figuring out how to get there, basically. Yeah, and yeah, like like when I was looking at your Rayleigh Technologies website, yeah, I kind of felt like, yeah, like this, like I know this sensation of like I want to make something that, you know, pays my rent, you know, like
Yeah, that's it.
yeah. And I think it like there's a lot of like, you know, for people like us who are not very business savvy, um I think, yeah, there's like this gap of knowledge of like figuring out how to actually achieve stuff like that, right? Like how to create an actual digital product and how to monetize that.
Yeah, what I say in that topic is, well, I don't consider myself good at business. Well, like actually I'm not, I know. But to be good at business, you have to like business.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't like business. I like enjoying the technical part. I like enjoying what I do. So I'm probably better at creating new things and testing new things and creating small tools and investigating how they work and on the technical part that trying to sell what I create. Actually, I will tell you more than that. I Once I created something, a small tool, and it works, and I've investigated all the technical part and everything, I don't really care to put it on the market. that's, that's the point. It's kind of wow, I really had a super good time learning about that, creating that. It was super exciting and it was amazing. And wow, it was a super great experience. All the process, I enjoyed all the process of creating and learning and everything. And when I already have the final product, it's kind of, okay, so now I have to put in some market. I prefer to just skip that part and I don't care about. I got several tools that I expect to publish. Well, at some point, maybe next week, maybe next month, maybe whenever. That I think they are great. They are great tools. Actually, got a tool to create quiz exams. I got a quizzer that you can create quiz exams with the stats and lots of features. And I also got a tool that I showed some demo about a year ago. That it's a tool to create PNGs from any other file. So you can drag and drop any file, and it generates a PNG with that file included. Okay, it was an experiment that I think they could be very interesting and useful tools, and it's pending for me to actually publish those tools. They are not published yet, because when I got into the computer, I prefer to work into Riley or work in the tools or work in some prototype or work in some code or working on the things that doing all the steps required to do the publishing. You know.
Yeah.
Actually, I told you before that in my last company, the last company I created, the last startup, I published several games for Windows Phone. Actually, those games, I ported those games for Android. Those games are ported for Android, and I haven't published that yet. Them. Because it's kind of okay, and it's in my infinite to-do list of pending tasks, and it's kind of, come on, it's not done. I got it in my mobile phone, and I play in my mobile phone, and I haven't published the game yet. Oh, yeah, it's kind of. But yeah, you usually have a lot. I usually want to do lots of things, and I have not enough time to finish everything. And at the end, the things that I finish or I end up publishing are the ones related with Riley, because it's where I know there is a lot of community behind. There is already a lot of people aware of that. I know there is a lot of people using it, and I know it can be beneficial for that people. So that's mostly what I've been publishing in the last month at least.
Yeah.
But well, I got some pending projects that I would like to publish at some point.
Yeah, that's the struggle that we all face here. Having an infinite to-do list and not being able to get everything that we want to get done.
That's it.
Yeah.
But I discovered in the one thing, for example, that helped me a lot was having that connection with nature, going into, for example, in working in the olive trees, in pruning, picking up olives, or even working in the fruit trees. I got apples, and I got pears, and I got several fruit trees. Working in the land or spending time in the land also helped me a lot to get some perspective, because when I'm there, I think, okay, I want to do a lot of things, but at the end, most of the things just imply sitting in front of a computer and what I'm creating. I'm just creating ones and zeros. I'm just creating code. So I'm just creating software, and software is kind of something that it's so volatile in some way. It's just digital. I don't know how to say that.
like
digital
digital stuff.
material in some
Yeah.
way. I then I'm in the land and I check the trees and I prune the trees and I check the fruits and I see how things grow, and it's kind of okay. It's also that's this is also very interesting to grow things. You know, it's another form of creation also, and
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's interesting to see that different kind of thinking to try to turn your mind into that other way. I don't know if I explain myself what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get what you mean. Yeah. It puts what you make and why you make it in perspective.
In some way, you change your perspective. You see things
Yeah.
in another way.
Yeah. And it.
Uh, there are other things that I can focus beside just code or software or whatever.
Yeah. Like there's more to life than just writing software, basically.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure.
I mean, maybe it doesn't worth it to really become crazy or become frustrated about about a long to-do list of digital software you want to create. Because at the end of the day, if you just do small steps on that side, it's not really bad. It's okay because you can have. There are many other things that you can do.
Yeah.
That's a bit my perspective.
Yeah. Completely agree with that. Well, it's been almost 2 hours at this point.
Maybe too long. Maybe you can. Well, it's still. Do you have any other question before?
No, not really. I mean, I think we covered pretty much everything that I
Okay,
wanted to
maybe if
cover.
it's too long, you can put some parts in the middle when talking
Yeah,
about the
that's
pandemic or anything.
no, that's fine. No, I like to leave like the as much as I can from the full conversation because I like that aspect of like just the natural conversation going on. So yeah, I'm just gonna like cut out the parts where I took a break and stuff like that. Um, but like yeah, other than that, yeah, no. So well, I really appreciate your time and having the opportunity to interview you. It was a lot of fun, and as I said, like you have a ton of knowledge, and I think that what you shared with us has a ton of value. So thank you very much for that.
Okay, well, thanks to you for inviting me, and yeah, it was a nice conversation. I really had fun. So it's okay. Hopefully, people listening to it, maybe they can comment or they have questions on anything. Feel free. Oh, and join Riley Discord. Uh, if you
Yeah,
have questions about Riley or want to share some of your creations.
awesome. Yeah, join the Discord, share your stuff.
Okay.
Awesome. Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.